Alright, time for some Eald'Narche cheese. And keep in mind, this will be a slightly unstandard run, or an untypical run for Eald'Narche as far as his skills, due to the fact that, well, I'm running him with 0 out of 3 ingots. And this boss is designed to be cheesed. He basically needs to be cheesed, or you can't win. You don't want his recast going off. And so, well, obviously the fight's designed around Eald'Narche, but, yeah, you don't want his recast to go off, or he'll basically wipe the whole team. Unless you have, like, last stand. Which I suppose is certainly something that could be run. But, I think HP silence is a great way to do it if you're not going for Eald'Narche. Or, of course, there's the popular just keep delaying the boss. But at this point his recast is up, and so I have to make a decision because I need to get terror on the boss. And as you can see here, using phase shift will not apply it because I do not have Eald'Narche's second ingot. And so my plan is to I phase shifted earlier than you typically want to, so I can get warp up, and warp will allow Eald'Narche to get more turns to use his skills to charge up Vortex Plus and get terror on the boss before he takes a turn. Sometimes you'll see me pause a bit because I'm thinking, so that I can decide what the best way to do this is. Aerith's going to seal evil. You know, I was thinking of running a 3-3 Realm, although I don't have Realm at 3-3, I have her at 0-3, but Realm can't really be used at 0-3 at this point in time anymore. And so, I was thinking about 3-3ing Realm because she has a similar mechanic to Eald'Narche, and would be fun to run alongside Eald'Narche, but quite frankly, Aerith and Krile were just enough, and so I didn't do it. I don't even use Celes's call. I probably should have swapped it out with a different one that I could have used better. A big reason for that is debuff management. So here I'm basically trying to decide, is Exceed Lance Plus going to be enough to charge Vortex Plus up, and then Eald'Narche will get to use it either here or on the next turn. So yeah, probably not the most effective way to do it. It would have been better if I would have used Exceed Lance Plus on the previous turn, and then I could have used debuff longer on this turn and then gone into Vortex Plus, but not a big deal. Eald'Narche is very much about pacing, as you'll see in this run, because I will basically run out of skills for him. So I recommend Eald'Narche for newer players? Kind of. The big advantage is Eald'Narche can really shut down a lot of bosses, especially bosses you're going to fight if you're catching up. And bosses in the future, especially bosses that shut down delay or turn delete mechanics. Because right now you can just delay or turn delete everybody due to having enough characters that do that. But if they shut them both down, then you'll need a different strategy, which I think Eald'Narche fits quite well. Otherwise you can HP silence with RCL or Kefka. But I found Eald'Narche fun, so I picked him. So yeah, a big reason for newer players to draw him would be the fact that he just shuts down bosses and will make difficult boss fights a lot more manageable. But the big disadvantage is the fact that he's pretty complicated to use. You have to really understand the mechanics of this game in order to use him effectively, or you risk just either burning him out, or the boss is slipping through, getting a turn without having terror up or warp up. I actually pitied Eald'Narche's first time around when he first came out with his EX and EX Plus, and it was worth every gem. I got so much out of him, especially back then when I was running budget runs, because he's very, very effective at 0-3 ingots, because ingots do so little for him. But I guess that's another well, might as well talk about it on the Eald'Narche run. So his first ingot gives him, I think, 30% attack and 40% max brave, which is decent. That's pretty decent. But it is skippable, especially with his LD giving him so much now. Although we'll see how I feel about that once his synergy stages run out. Maybe I'll run him back on the Medusa heads at the end of Act 3, Chapter 1, where he's not synergy, see how I feel about it. But anyways, so yeah, you get an okay but not wonderful stat boost, like Aerith gets. Aerith gets, I think, something like 80% attack and 90% max brave or something like that from her first ingot, so that's really good. And then Eald'Narche's second ingot applies the terror debuff when you use exoplates, or when you swap him, when you shift him into his final form, so to speak. It's not exoplates, it's called phase shift. What am I thinking? So yeah, it allows the phase shift ability to use to apply terror, which is nice because terror is a very, very powerful debuff, and so to get to apply it an extra amount could sometimes be the difference between a run succeeding and not succeeding. But alas, that's all it does. And so I think that's probably the best thing that his ingots do, though. And then his third ingot turns Vortex and Vortex Plus from 6 hits to 8, ups their overflow a bit, and probably most importantly gives him access to his EX boards, which does have the additional damage for his HP++ attack, or the additional strength for it, I should say. It's probably more accurate than damage. But so yeah, his EX boards are pretty nice, but the ingots themselves are not that great. So I am swapping Ramza in here because the boss's EX is no longer up. One of the unique things about this boss is that even if the boss's turn is bypassed through terror or HP silence, the recast gauge continues to go through. So even if the boss is prevented from taking an action through, well, you can't really paralyze it. I guess you can use Ramuh's paralyze, but we're delaying him here because we want to get as few turns as possible. I guess I'm debating if I should finishing touch there, which I decide not to do. But anyways, yeah, this boss is unique in his recast gauge, continuing even though it misses a turn, so you can, that's the best way to deal with its recasts itself, is to make it unable to act when the recast is up enough times to where the recast gauge then resets. So I was waiting for the recast gauge to reset before bringing Ramza out, due to I didn't want to risk it getting a turn with the recast available. So here, yeah, I think I'm trying to get it to come out of break, so I can break it and then get Ramza his turn. Was probably what I'm trying to do. But yeah, I didn't want that thing's recast to go off. And then the second thing is I didn't want the little minion bugs to be out, because they prevent the big bug, the boss, from being delayed, which then makes Ramza a little bit less useful. So right now, not only can it be delayed, but I don't risk its recast happening. And we go into Summon, which will incidentally apply Ramuh's Paralyze, which will prevent the little bugs from being resummoned at any point, but it also gets all of our turns lined up properly for some really high damage launches. Look at that, almost 500,000. Actually, Ramza's going to be, anytime Ramza is using his LD with his launch, we're going to get pretty darn close to 500,000 in damage, if not hit that a few times. Ramza's LD is just so bloody powerful. but that's why I pulled him out. And then Eald'Narche is a great unit to pull out because he doesn't really add any auras. I mean, yeah, you have Eald'Narche's Tactics armor, which is a pretty decent aura, but it's much less of an aura than what Aerith would offer, or Krile, as far as support. And not only that, but Eald'Narche is like, yeah, so you look at that 500,000 from that launch, holy cow. But Eald'Narche is likely to burn out and run through his skills. And so that's why I think Eald'Narche is a great unit to swap out for the friend, so that way you don't burn Eald'Narche out too quickly. Especially for this fight when I used Phase Shift a bit earlier than normal. So I think I'm going to HP plus here because I do not want Ramza's frame debuff to appear on the boss, possibly preventing Eald'Narche from putting up any of his more important and more powerful, arguably, frame debuffs. I mean, they're all kind of mediocre in power, but yeah, see, alright, so we've got a warp on there, but no terror if I saw that correctly. So we want to get Vortex Plus ready, and we want to use that last turn of warp properly. Now we don't need terror on the boss for this one turn due to the fact that he's paralyzed, but I want to have that Vortex Plus ready to be castable when Eald'Narche's next turn comes, right after the boss's, and so that was the correct move to make. Also, Stellar Burst is a great way to keep Eald'Narche's buff Exceed Lance up, because that buff will run down if you're not paying attention pretty quickly. Now, if the boss comes out of break, that's even better, because Eald'Narche will break him and then get a turn after the next turn. I hope that made sense. And he came out of break, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So what's going to happen here is, see, Vortex Plus isn't ready, but that's okay. I can use Exceed Lance here, or Omega Javelin. I think I Exceed Lance for that, yeah, for the free C65. This is fantastic use of it, because I can apply Warp to all three enemies at once, which I guess Omega Javelin would have done, but also now I can get his Vortex Plus ready on a non-warp turn, I'm just going to call it, which means that it's going to function like a regular C65 and that he'll still have his turn available. So here we use debuff attack all longer, whatever that thing's called, act longer, and now we can Vortex Plus. And so that was extremely efficient and effective use of Eald'Narche right there. It was risky, but it ended up working. Now you could argue that Terror is a waste here due to the fact that nobody is targeting Eald'Narche, but keep in mind it also has Eald'Narche's, it does a 20% HP damage up for Eald'Narche, plus I have no idea when that bug is going to switch into an attack all. Alright, so now the bug at 50%, it'll put on a Brave Shield and reduce all Brave damage to 1 until the Brave Shield is removed. So what I'm hoping to, the way I'm hoping to remove it is by just pushing those buffs off. Aerith Seal Evil re-added her frame buff. Stellar Burst pushed another one off. I have one more to push off. Now Eald'Narche's Stellar Burst was kind of wasted there due to the fact that Krile is just going to use Cleansing because her Cleansing buff was about to wear off anyways, and Cleansing applies 2 debuffs. Lightning Resistance down and Judgment. So those 2 debuffs would have already pushed the shield off. In fact, the speed down debuff that comes from Stellar Burst was pushed off. When Eald'Narche uses his C65 or the debuff act longer, oh dear, Eald'Narche's Brave damage was kind of low there. But that's because Krile's Lightning Resist down has worn off, and so everybody's Brave damage is going to be a little bit low until I can get Krile to debuff them again with her Lightning Resist down. Often I will double check just to see how many tears and warps are left. But anyways, so with Eald'Narche's, now that he has his Exceed Lance and Exceed Lance Plus is the one you should be using, and he has the extra uses from his C65. What I tend to do is use the Exceed Lance, then use the Vortex Plus skill, and then the question becomes, when do I use Omega Javelin again to apply 4 turns of Warp, because Exceed Lance will only apply 2 turns. And I try to kind of stretch it out until Eald'Narche is down to only 1 turn left of his C65 buff. And the reason for that is because that way I can take advantage of the 2-turn warps as much as possible that Eald'Narche applies through his LB through Exceed Lance, and I can have, yeah, see now he's doing damage, Eald'Narche is doing damage again because Krile applied the lightning resist down. But anyways, I want to delay Omega Javelin as much as I can till the C65 ability is right about to wear off, so that way his Exceed Lance buff can get reapplied when it's a little bit lower, and I'm not worried about them going any turns without warp due to his Exceed Lance plus applying it. If that didn't make sense, I'll talk about it when I do it again. His Vortex Plus is getting pretty close to being ready. But I need to make sure to time Terror properly so it doesn't overlap itself too much. We're doing pretty well with our turn count here. It's really amazing how much damage the units who can do the free turn after the enemy acts are able to do, which I think is just Eald'Narche and Realm. So Stellar Burst there to get the Vortex Plus ready. We're going to use debuff, act, attack longer. I probably didn't need to use it there. I probably could have waited for his next turn, but whatever. Vortex Plus. And now we have 3 more turns of, you can see the little 3 right underneath Eald'Narche, 3 more turns of debuff to act longer. And so I'm going to wait till that gets to a 1, and then I will Omega Javelin. So I guess right there I was debating if I was going to Ray of Hope into the EX, which I didn't. For reasons that are not obvious to me at the moment. I guess I was worried about Krile burning out or something. Alright, 2 more turns until the C65 wears off, so I'll HP plus 1 more time. Oh, and the ads are gonna die when he Omega Javelins anyways. You could almost argue, and I should do a little bit of research to see if it's better to just let all the warps wear off and only apply 2 more turns of warp from Omega Javelin, because now with the other ads gone, the enemy boss is gonna get, there's gonna be fewer enemy boss turns for Eald'Narche to take advantage of. Eald'Narche really shines when there's more enemies, as does like Gao or Realm. Although I wouldn't run Gao in this stage, he'd be pretty gimped due to the little ads nullifying earth damage. So you can see here we're a little bit halfway past the turn count. We've got his HP down to 29%, but Eald'Narche is running really low on skills. Typically I try to look for a, quote, right time to use Jack's LD, but in this case there wasn't really going to be one. Well, I guess you could argue that like in the launch, not in the launch, in the summon would have been a good time, but everybody was already hitting for max spray damage anyways. So I'm just doing it here because Eald'Narche could use the extra power from Jack's debuff. Even though Eald'Narche's play is a little counterintuitive to having Jack's LD as a call due to the fact that Eald'Narche wants the boss to take turns, so that Eald'Narche can get the free turns, and Jack's debuff wants the boss not to take turns so the debuff doesn't wear off. But it is what it is. It ends up working out. I mean, it's not like I'm anywhere... It's not like I'm at risk of hitting the turn count at this point. At this point, it's all about pacing, making sure the boss doesn't get a recast off, or even a turn off, ideally, but a recast off definitely, before Eald'Narche runs out of steam. And, alright, so here we have Exceed Lance going up. This will apply warp to everybody. I need to seal evil here, because I'm pretty sure Aerith's. Seal evil, it has worn off, yeah. Guess I'm debating. I don't know if I ever end up using Cloud's finishing touch in this. It's not really a great team for launches, due to the fact that we don't really push the enemy turns back out. I mean, it would have been good to do earlier in summon or whatever, just after the summon, but I missed that opportunity. Krile's battery is so ridiculously strong. Krile and Aerith's. Alright, 3 more turns of the C65, so we'll just keep HP plussing. And 2 more turns now, another HP plus, or plus. And hitting for max damage with this setup. 1 more turn of it, and so here we will Omega Javelin. And unfortunately Jack's debuff is going to fall off after this, so at this point we're just going to enjoy it while we still can. So something I guess I'll bring up now, since there's a little bit of space here, since I've pretty much already talked about everything that's going on, is for my Eald'Narche I actually have a 3/3 purple of his weapon, because I wouldn't say I rage purpled Eald'Narche a long time ago, but about 4 months ago, back when Kuja's LD first came out, I pulled it and then just decided to take a break from the game, which was fine. I took about a 3-month break. But when I did that, I set Eald'Narche as my friend unit because he was such a great friend unit. I think Ink from the Tomberry Troop once said that he was able to get 25 turns out of a friend unit, which is a lot of turns out of a friend Eald'Narche. But anyways, I figured he'd be a great friend unit to leave, and I didn't want to leave him with 0-3 because that's kind of rude. And so I 3-3'd him, set him as a friend, and then stopped playing. And then I came back to the game later and double-checked what his ingots actually did, and I was like, oh my god, his ingots do almost nothing. He'd be a great budget unit to run, or a 0-3 unit to run, and so while pulling for his LD, which was a little rough, for whatever reason my gem pulls have been really, really lucky recently, and my ticket pulls have been not lucky at all. I think I pulled Aerith and Celeste's LDs both on the free gem pull, but then for tickets I threw 300 tickets to Eald'Narche and only got EXs, and then 3 gem pulls in through Eald'Narche I was able to get his LD, so whatever. But I made a second copy of his EX weapon and left it at 0-3, and then removed all the EX passives so I could try and run him as a 0-3 unit. You will see that at the end of this run. So I don't know if you remember, but earlier when I used his phase shift it did not apply tear, so you can tell he's at 0-3 right now, or at least not at 2-3. But I'll show that at the end. I gave him the 0-3 EX, I removed his EX passive, obviously, and I removed all of his character boards that he gets from his EX, just so I could truly run him at 0-3, which is really out of your way to go. I know, it's really out of your way to go to run a character at 0-3, but it was, at this point I had no choice, because I foolishly 3-3'd him earlier when I did not need to. I haven't even used his sphere. Sphere's kind of decent at best. And I enjoy Eald'Narche, so I'm going to run him. I guess I enjoy everybody. I'm kind of a little bummed I wasn't able to pick up Emperor, because Emperor looks like a lot of fun. But, you know, I gotta skip something. I don't really plan on pulling Y'shtola, due to the fact that Aerith, I feel like, covers a lot of Y'shtola's role. Yeah, Y'shtola might be a better batterier than Aerith, and I may be wrong about something here, because I don't look that far into the future, and I don't keep up with the JP game. I obviously don't play the JP game. But, yeah, that's going to be my excuse for skipping Y'shtola for now. I don't dislike Y'shtola, I just have to pick people to skip. It's harder to pick people to skip than to pull, you know? Eald'Narche is basically out of skills at this point, so luckily the boss is very close to dying. But again, part of that was I used to phase shift a bit early. And now that we're out of the whole boss fights that are expected to take 100-120 turns phase at the moment, boss fights are expected to go much quicker. I think Eald'Narche will have a better time with that. And Omega Javelin before the C65 wears off. Again, I'm not entirely sure if that's the right way to do it, but it seems like a good way to do it, especially when you have multiple enemies like this. And this will basically be the end here. Keep in mind Eald'Narche's synergy in this, as is Aerith. So I may end up 3-3ing Aerith later. I probably will. I mean, Aerith covers a lot of roles, which is really, really nice. Oh, what happened there was my recording stopped because it has a recording limit. The recorder I use is the built-in recorder in my Samsung phone, and it just stops without warning on me sometimes. And that's what happened there. Alright, I had some syncing issues with the voiceover, or desyncing, but I did what I could to fix it. So here Eald'Narche, you can see, is 0-3 with the weapon I'm using. And I have removed the passives you get from his EX boards, so that way he can be a true 0-3. And Aerith is 1-3. That's about it. Thanks for watching.